Good morning. My name is Colin. I'm delighted to be presenting to all of you as part of the Generations in Arbitrations Conference. Sorry I'm not there in person. I wasn't able to spare the time to fly over to be with you all in Hong Kong. I'm a big fan of Hong Kong, but just couldn't do it this time. But actually it's appropriate for the topic that I've been asked to present on, Fad or Future, the Impact of Technology on International Dispute Resolution. So I've recorded my comments here and we've put it into a timed slideshow. So I know it can be challenging to keep everyone engaged through a pre-recorded presentation like this, but I'm going to do my best to be snappy and keep it engaging. If you have any questions, please note them down, and I think we're going to have a chance to do a live Q&A after the slide presentation completes, and then you can ask me there. So, the question you may be asking yourself is, who am I? Well, my name, as I mentioned, is Colin Rule. I'm CEO of a company called Modria.com. That stands for Modular Online Dispute Resolution Implementation Assistance. I'm the former director of online dispute resolution at eBay and PayPal. And Modria is actually a spin-out from eBay and PayPal. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the technology we've spun out. I've been mediating for about 20 years. And I have a background in public policy facilitation as well. And I wrote a book in 2002 called Online Dispute Resolution for Business. With the pace of technology, books can quickly go out of date. I think there's still some value in ODR for Business, the book, but a new one is coming out from the American Bar Association this year. So hopefully it'll be a little more updated, particularly with some of the lessons that we learned at eBay and PayPal. So what I've been asked to talk about today is sort of give an overview of what's happening in the world of online dispute resolution and inform a little bit more about how that's developing and what the ODR technology looks like. So this roadmap starts at a high level, what is online dispute resolution, and then moves very quickly into the topics of what we did on eBay and PayPal, current innovations, and then kind of where it's all heading. So the first question you may be asking yourself is, what is online dispute resolution? I'm not sure how familiar everyone in the audience is with that particular term. I like to think of online dispute resolution as being defined very broadly as the use of information and communications technology to help parties resolve their disputes. Now, a lot of people have the opinion that online dispute resolution is just the internet, but I actually think teleconferences are online dispute resolution. I think LCD projectors, in-room technology can be online dispute resolution. So I define ODR very broadly. And on this slide here, ADR types, I'm sure many of you in the audience are very familiar with this particular spectrum of alternative dispute resolution techniques. I think I even lifted this from the JAMS website here in the United States. But when we're designing dispute resolution systems, we often think about the spectrum of tools we can pick from, moving from direct negotiation, where the parties have complete control over the outcome and complete control over the process, through facilitative models like mediation and meet-arb, over to techniques like arbitration and private judging, where the parties have almost no control over the outcome and very little control over the process as well. But in online dispute resolution, we can actually draw from this palette of solutions, but we also have other questions that we need to ask. For instance, how do we want parties to communicate with each other? Can they communicate synchronously? Can they communicate asynchronously, meaning through text only? So there's a wide variety of questions that online dispute resolution systems designers have to address. And you can see here on this slide, talking about online dispute resolution types, you see direct negotiation, you see mediation. Often we talk about evaluation as opposed to arbitration, because not all of the decisions that are rendered in ODR are binding, like arbitration. But we also have some other techniques that have emerged, problem diagnosis being a great example. A lot of dispute resolvers do pre-negotiation work, and they talk with their parties in advance of the initiation of negotiation, but technology gives us the ability to provide much earlier and much more robust diagnosis and self-help. And many disputes can be resolved earlier. And in most cases, the earlier you can engage a dispute, the better. So technology can help us access those disputes earlier. And the other thing we have is technology-assisted negotiation, where the software can actually support the work of the negotiators in their attempt to find a mutually acceptable resolution. And we could talk about some of those algorithmic techniques that are something that it would be very difficult, either impractical or impossible for a human mediator or facilitator to undertake. Mediation online works quite similarly to mediation in the face-to-face world, but there's also a lot of innovation in the space of online evaluation. For instance, one of the things we've done at eBay is the creation of juries, online juries, where panels of community members can come in and listen to a dispute between a buyer or seller and then render decisions. So instead of having 2, 3, or 5, or 7 arbitrators, you could have 50 or 100 even. Technology enables that kind of scale. So there's innovation that's happening throughout this ecosystem. So it's definitely, ODR grows out of ADR, but it's quite a bit different. So why did ODR arise? Really, online dispute resolution is only about 11 or 12 years old. It was the late 90s when online dispute resolution cropped up. And it wasn't that we didn't have online interaction prior to that phase, but it was when the internet really emerged as a commercial force and e-commerce transactions started to grow. That was when people started to say, well, how are we going to resolve these issues? Because many of these are low dollar value, they're cross-border, and it's not a good fit with our existing judicial systems, which are quite costly and very bound to geography. So the early realization was that the existing legal systems in most of the developed world just simply can't handle these cases because they're too low value. If in a matter of milliseconds you can buy an item in Hong Kong that is from a seller in the United States and it's shipped out of Europe, the law is so complex and the value of that transaction is so low that enforcement is too difficult, trying to figure out how to get a resolution to that case. So online dispute resolution has kind of emerged as the best solution for those types of transactions. Now, why is it that businesses care about resolving these disputes? Well, if you have buyers who have repeated negative experiences online, over time that weakens their trust. And that means they're less likely to engage in transactions. And it also means they're less likely to pay full price online because they're going to price in the risk. So many internet intermediaries have traditionally avoided responsibility for the types of disputes that arise on their platform, or they've sort of dealt with it with an insurance model where they just pay out anyone who has a problem. But over time, that has created a culture of mistrust and kind of a Wild West attitude on the internet that many companies realize is an issue for them. So what's happened, especially in the last 5 years, is that many international organizations have embraced online dispute resolution. And we've seen the announcement of several large online dispute resolution cross-border pilots that are attempting to solve the issue of cross-border consumer redress using online dispute resolution as the foundation. Because you can build dispute resolution into the contract or into the terms of use, there are no issues of jurisdiction or enforcement because it's built into the actual transaction infrastructure. So online dispute resolution works the way the internet works, in the sense that it's a peer-to-peer process where the intelligence is distributed throughout the network. As opposed to most judicial systems which rely on a central authority that has the power to make decisions and enforce those decisions. So we've had about 10 years of building and refining these online dispute resolution systems, and I think with that maturity and the development of a fairly robust theory behind online dispute resolution, many international organizations are more comfortable in embracing ODR as the solution to the problems they're encountering. So. As I mentioned, over the last 10 years, we've seen the emergence of institutions in the ODR space. The first of which is the National Center for Technology and Dispute Resolution, which is hosted at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst in the United States. The website for NCTDR is odr.info. And it really is a comprehensive resource with information about every aspect of online dispute resolution. One of the good things about ODR is pretty much all the writing and all of the work that's happening in ODR is available online. And odr.info is kind of the center for that. We've had an online conference in ODR called ADR Cyber Week that's run for the last 12 or 13 years. And in the past few years, it's been hosted at adrhub.com, and it's usually held in October. So if you'd like to attend, we have thousands of people attending ADR Cyber Week from all over the world, and we demo ODR platforms and have a variety of discussions. So all of you are welcome there. The American Bar Association has an online dispute resolution committee in their dispute resolution section, and the Association for Conflict Resolution also has an online section. So we are seeing the emergence of professional networks of online dispute resolution practitioners and scholars. And a new textbook has just come out, just hot off the presses in the last month, called Online Dispute Resolution Theory and Practice. It's an edited volume, edited by Mohammed Wahab from Egypt. So if you want to learn more, it's a great updated resource. And then we also have face-to-face online dispute resolution forums, the 11th of which is going to be meeting in Prague at the end of June, and you can learn more about it at odr2012.org. But we've met 10 prior times. In 2011, we were in Chennai, and in 2010, we were in Buenos Aires. We were in Hong Kong, I think, in 2008 or 2009. So I want to thank the Hong Kong International Arbitration Center for hosting that. That was one of a series of great meetings, but we've met all over the world, in Haifa and Melbourne and Vancouver. So it's really a truly international group, because online dispute resolution is an international problem. So let me talk a bit about what we've done at eBay and PayPal. I was the first director of online dispute resolution, as I mentioned, at eBay and PayPal, and built the systems first that eBay used to resolve disputes, and then moved over to PayPal and worked on their systems. But there have been many experiments in online dispute resolution that have proved its viability. The Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, ICANN, has a dispute resolution scheme called the UDRP, the Uniform Domain Name Dispute Resolution Protocol, that has resolved tens of thousands of cases over the last 10 or 12 years, and it's been very successful. And the Asian Domain Name Dispute Resolution Center in Asia is one of the more recent dispute resolution providers to operate under the UDRP. But and I think a lot of people look to ICANN's UDRP as an example of how ODR can be effective in providing cross-jurisdictional redress processes. But the volume of that system is quite different than the type of volume that we wrestle with at eBay and PayPal. And as many of you know, eBay and PayPal is quite a large marketplace. We have more than 250 million global users, registered users, although I think it's closer to 100 million active users on the site. We've had more than 5 billion feedbacks left on the site, and that's essentially a rating from one transaction partner of the performance of another transaction partner. And we have more than 1 billion items listed on the site each year. We actually do more volume on a daily basis at eBay than the NASDAQ, which is a popular trading index in the United States. So if you were to count up all of these users as citizens, eBay would be the 5th largest country in the world. Now, I share that statistic, but I was on a panel the other day with a representative from Facebook, and they have 840 some odd million users, and he mentioned that they would be the 3rd largest country in the world. So that made eBay look a little bit smaller. So note to self, do not use this statistic when on a panel with Facebook. But there's actually several sites now that have that kind of user penetration, and so that gives you a sense of scale. And I've always thought, as I mentioned, my background is in public policy, and I often think of eBay as kind of like a virtual country, and we are building the civil justice system for this virtual country. At eBay and PayPal, we do more than 60 million disputes per year, and over the years, because we've had so much volume, we've actually been able to improve our software to the point where 90% of those cases are resolved entirely by software. And the majority of the cases that we see filed at eBay and PayPal are resolved amicably, where the buyer and seller work it out themselves. So I really have thought about this as a judicial design process. And I think that the challenges that we faced at eBay and PayPal actually exist across the internet and in a variety of other very large internet intermediaries. So eBay, why is it that eBay understood online dispute resolution before many of the other large internet companies? Well, I think eBay is somewhat unique. eBay is not a seller. eBay sells nothing and eBay buys nothing, and there's no inventory that eBay maintains. So I remember in the early days of eBay, buyers would sometimes call me up and say, "Hey, has eBay shipped the item out of the eBay warehouse yet?" And I would say, "Well, let me walk you through eBay. There is no eBay warehouse. eBay never sees your item. eBay doesn't even know you've made the purchase until the payment is made, and eBay doesn't even pay any attention to it. At least the humans that work at eBay doesn't pay any attention unless there's a problem. So it's only an exception handling process where eBay gets involved." So in the early days, eBay saw itself as a referee, and it would intermediate the communication between the buyer and seller. But as volume scaled, it was clear that eBay couldn't continue to do that. We only have 20 some odd thousand employees around the world and 60 million disputes a year. So there's no way we can intermediate or engage in shuttle diplomacy between all those buyers and sellers. So, and if you ask eBay's users what's eBay's job, they'll say eBay's job is to ensure that the marketplace runs smoothly. And part of that is ensuring that problems can be worked out. So when I arrived at eBay, I wanted to create software that could help the buyer and seller work the disputes out themselves directly. So one of the first things we built on the eBay side is what's now called the Resolution Center. And it's a console through which buyers and sellers can track all the problems that they have and get them resolved. And every single user on eBay has access to a resolution center, and all of their cases are tracked right on that page. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you have access to this resolution center, and it can allow communication between buyers and sellers no matter where they are. Everything is tracked in the resolution center. Now, we built this on eBay, but very quickly we realized that enforcement is paramount in making this process matter. And enforcement in these cases really has to do with moving money. And the money movement for eBay in most areas of the world happens through PayPal. So I shifted over to PayPal, and I ended up building the Resolution Center at PayPal as well. Now, at the top of every page on PayPal, all around the world, there's access to what we call the Security Center, Security and Resolution Center. And it's very easy to find. We surfaced the access to these redress processes so that any member that has a problem, either a buyer or a seller, could very quickly find the channel to get it solved. And so just like on eBay, every PayPal user has a personalized resolution center that tracks all of their open cases. This is the view of the resolution center that's presented to a buyer. So you can see it's got a very clear call to action where they can click that orange button and dispute a transaction, and all of their cases are managed here. If it turns out that this resolution center is being used by a seller, and we see that it's a higher volume user where they have many more cases, the resolution center automatically updates to be more of a portal where batch actions are possible and you can sort all of your cases. So the tool evolves to meet the needs of the various parties. But we found that the Resolution Center has been a very effective way for buyers and sellers to resolve their issues. And 99.99% of the time, the resolutions that we deliver through the Resolution Center at eBay and PayPal are adequate for the parties, and it is not appealed to any judicial channel or non-governmental organization for further enforcement. And part of the evidence for that has been drawn from longitudinal quantitative studies that we've conducted looking at the data warehouse at eBay and PayPal. And I've just written an article about this. I'm happy to provide more detail if any of you are interested. But we actually did an analysis of hundreds of thousands of users on PayPal. And we looked at buyers who were active in a given month. And then we analyzed their activity on PayPal 3 months prior to that active month, and then 3 months post. And then what we did was we divided them into kind of an A/B test. We looked at buyers that filed a dispute in that active month and calculated their activity ratio and compared that against the activity ratios of buyers who did not file a dispute in that month. And we found something very interesting. What we found is that the reactivation rate of any given buyer, the average reactivation rate of buyers who did not file a dispute, is lower than the reactivation rate of buyers who did file a dispute. And that actually goes for all of the different outcomes that are possible in the dispute. So to translate that a little bit, that means that a buyer who files a dispute, and even if they lose that dispute, they do not get a refund, they have higher activity in the trailing 3 months after the active month than a user who never filed a dispute in the first place. Now, certain people at PayPal found this information kind of counterintuitive. They said, should we be giving all of our users disputes to increase their loyalty? And the answer to that is no, we should not be giving disputes. But when a buyer does encounter a problem, that is a huge driver of loyalty to eBay and PayPal. Now, the only bucket of buyers that had a lower activity ratio versus the buyers that didn't file a dispute were buyers for whom the process took a really long time. And this definitely syncs up with some of the learnings that we had gotten directly from buyers who have said they would rather lose a case quickly on PayPal than win a case and have the process take a long time, weeks and weeks. And that's probably because the average transaction value is somewhere around $100 US. So aside from that bucket, and again, that's less than 0.01% of the overall volume of disputes that we analyzed. The highest reactivation rate came when the buyer and seller were able to resolve their claim amicably. So you can see the reactivation rate on PayPal is about 108% for buyers that did not file disputes or claims. But if the buyer and seller were able to work it out, the reactivation rate is somewhere north of 115, 116%. And that increase in activity is worth tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to eBay and PayPal. And it's very difficult for those of us in the dispute resolution field to quantify the financial benefit for some of the work that we do. So that's why I think this quantitative analysis is particularly interesting, because it's very difficult for us to do these kind of A/B tests in lower volume environments or face-to-face environments where data is not captured in an analyzable way as it is at eBay and PayPal. So I'll tell you about a couple innovations that we built in addition to the Resolution Center. We have a website called ebaycourt.com that's been running since 2008, and it actually is a jury-based system where any eBay user can apply to be a juror, and if they meet the eligibility criteria, they can hear disputes between buyers and sellers over feedback and render decisions. And whoever gets the majority to agree with them in the decision, then that's communicated back to eBay, and eBay enforces the outcome. So kind of radically rethinking the jury process is possible online. And we've had a lot of interesting lessons. And if you have questions about it, I'd be happy to talk further about the eBay Court. We also built a website called PayPal Court. Now, eBay has a very strong community, and there's a lot of connections between users on eBay, whereas on PayPal, as a payment channel, there's not that same strong community. So for PayPal, we actually went out and found appraisers who can authenticate items, particularly luxury good items, to ensure they're not counterfeits. So there we recruit arbitrators to play that particular role, but it's still the same core platform. Now, Modria is a spin-out of some of this technology. Again, it's highly automatable, so our goal is to hit that 90% of the 60 million cases in terms of resolving those cases without the need for customer support. But we have a variety of algorithmic approaches, like bidding-based solutions or solution set databases. We can combine those algorithmic approaches, which are software only, with crowdsourced resolutions that are much more efficient. So we have a panel of experts that we've brought together to deliver those crowdsourced resolutions as well. So several patents have been filed by eBay for these innovations, and we have licensed this technology from eBay. So we won several innovation awards while we were inside the company, and now we're trying to take the same tools that we built at eBay and PayPal and apply them to disputes that occur across the internet. So we built a platform called resolutioncenter.com, and you can go take a look at it if you want to check it out. We've got a new user experience that's coming live in the next week or two. We're very excited about it, and we hope to be able to provide free resolution centers to mediators and arbitrators all over the world. So stay tuned to modria.com and resolutioncenter.com, and hopefully there'll be announcements coming out soon, and you can actually try the technology out yourself. And as I mentioned, we have a panel that lives at adrmarketplace.com. You can go and apply and enter all of your information, and if we have cases that come up through Modria and Resolution Center that are appropriate for your expertise, we can refer it to you and then pay you for those cases. So our goal is to create a very robust ecosystem of online dispute resolution, both algorithmic and human-powered, And that's what Modria is working hard to build, is this self-reinforcing network that will create demand for the services provided by mediators and arbitrators, at the same time meeting the needs of all of these cases that are not being adequately addressed currently because they're so high volume and so low value. So, as I mentioned, various international organizations have embraced the use of online dispute resolution. And UNCITRAL, several years ago, created a permanent working group on online dispute resolution. And at the May meeting in New York, our hope is that UNCITRAL is going to release a set of consensus rules that describes the development of a global cross-border consumer redress process. So this is a problem that national consumer protection authorities around the world have been wrestling with for some time. And I'm sure many of you know about the Hague Conference on Private International Law, which has been trying to figure out where we can locate these cross-border cases legally. They've been talking about that for decades, and the internet has made that question even more complicated. So UNCITRAL, actually led by the United States, because it was a U.S. proposal that actually led to the current vision of how this ODR system could work. They are saying that instead of trying to figure out where to legally locate these cases and to deal with them through the existing judicial processes, it's better for us to build this cross-border ODR system because that better meets the needs of consumers in these cases. And the last bullet on this slide, the EU, potentially goaded by the progress at UNCITRAL, but Europe has been far ahead on thinking about the utility of ODR. But the EU has announced that they are trying to get approval for a region-wide online dispute resolution system to be launched by 2015, and all EU member states will be required to participate in that system. So that's led to a lot of excitement in Europe and a lot of discussions around exactly how the process could work. But our aspiration at Modria is to collaborate with other ODR providers to build a network that can support UNCITRAL cases, support the EU network as envisioned, but also to handle a wide variety of other types of issues, including privacy or IP. So there's a huge need for a global redress process to support not only e-commerce, but all activity that's happening online. And the goal is for all of these ODR experiments to come together. There's another website called odrexchange.com, which Modria is very supportive of, and it is trying to come up with common data standards that would allow all of these different dispute resolution organizations around the world to exchange cases and communicate seamlessly with each other. So the design for this system, I won't go into it in much detail because I see we're running out of time, my allocated time here, but the design for this system does envision the creation of a global case database, perhaps administered by the UN or by a non-governmental organization, and then ODR mechanisms around the world can then interoperate with that global case database and exchange information. So if a seller in China has a dispute with a buyer in the United States, they can both file through their national administrators in their country or a local ODR provider, and if they can't work it out through mutual agreement, then a third-party ODR provider can deliver a neutral mediator or arbitrator to work with the parties to try and find an outcome. And we envision that this will be opt-in from both the seller and the buyer side. The seller will opt into the system proactively before they pre-dispute, but buyers will be able to initiate participation in the system post-dispute once they know that they have an issue. So we're still trying to work out the details within UNCITRAL, but that's roughly how we see this central clearinghouse structure operating. So the long and the short of it is, online dispute resolution is sort of moving into the spotlight. Technology no longer is as controversial as it once was, particularly with the permeation of mobile devices throughout the world. Everyone, even in developing countries, has some sort of rudimentary access to the cloud, to the internet. So the acceptance of online dispute resolution tools and techniques is growing every day. I remember 10 years ago, I had a lot of conversations with people where they expressed great skepticism about the utility of technology in dispute resolution. Well, now people don't have that skepticism because everyone's carrying around iPhones and Android phones in their pockets. You see India releasing these low-cost tablets to students just for $35 a piece, and we're going to see that that process accelerate even further. So we in the dispute resolution field need to embrace the use of these tools and also understand that there are demand for our services that go beyond our immediate geographic areas, and online dispute resolution can enable us to respond to those demands. Alternative dispute resolution, it's often said, lives in the shadow of the law. ADR means we are an alternative. What are we an alternative to? We're an alternative to the courts. But I often joke that there's no A in ODR. Online dispute resolution is not an alternative to the courts because in most of these cases, the courts are not applicable to these types of disputes. So online dispute resolution has the position of being the default, and that's a massive opportunity for those of us in the dispute resolution field to build a system that does not operate in the shadow of any other alternative. And I've mentioned a lot about B2C disputes and how consumers can use these systems, but we've recently sealed a partnership with the CPR Institute for Dispute Resolution in New York, and we plan to build more sophisticated ODR environments that could support higher dollar value arbitration cases, commercial cases. And again, they may be relatively low value compared to the cases processed by the ICC, for instance. We may focus on cases less than $250,000. But over time, the expectation of parties is that they're going to be able to use technology in the same way that they do in the course of their normal business. And those of us in the dispute resolution field, mediators and arbitrators, need to understand how these tools can be useful if we're going to be able to respond to the demands of our parties. So we're starting out with these low-value cases. We're moving into higher-value cases. Instead of starting with grassroots and growing up, we actually are beginning global because that is where the need is strongest for ODR services. And we are starting off with these online-only disputes because there's really no other alternative for resolving those cases. But we believe that as ODR tools become more accepted and more robust and more effective, more and more parties who have quote-unquote face-to-face or offline disputes will want to use online tools to get them addressed. And with the jet engine of the regional and international organizations all promoting ODR, we really believe that the time is now. So part of what I would like to do with all of you is just plant the seed and create awareness of these developments in the ODR space, and just urge you to learn more and add some of these online dispute resolution tools into your toolbox over time. And hopefully some of the things that we're doing at Modria will, if you have a chance to try those out, you'll be willing to leverage them in your work with your parties. So here's my contact information, my email and my company. If you have any questions or anything in the wake, if we can't get to them in the Q&A period, please feel free to send me an email, and I do everything that I can to hook you up with the right people. At odr.info, you can see a list of our global fellows. The National Center for Technology and Dispute Resolution has online dispute resolution fellows all around the world. There's actually a lot that's happening in Asia right now, in Japan and Korea and China. So I wouldn't be surprised if there are experts in the room right there who can answer some questions about, for instance, what CTAC is doing with ODR. But I'm happy to get an email from any of you, and I'm delighted to take your questions live now. Thank you very much for your time.